When there's a creature that is devilish and otherworldly in fiction, a commonly used term to describe them is demon, and fighting games are no exception. There's no real consistent trait to demons in fighting games, but I feel you can tell when a character is meant to be a demon. Maybe it's an evil aura, or fire powers, or just having a darker, non-human aesthetic. If a character isn't human, nor animal, nor robot, nor anything else we have defined of being in the game's universe, we could consider them to be a demon. Sometimes they have a lore-specific name that is the equivalent to demon, but as long as they're classified as basically a demon, I'll include them on my search for the best demons in fighting games. Simple as that. The overall definition of demon is pretty broad and can vary from series to series, so expect all sorts of crazy characters on this list. The only restriction is one character per series of origin. Now, let's conjure up the top 10 demons in fighting games. Number 10, Nyotengu from Dead or Alive. Nyotengu is the princess of the Tengu realm, and as that title implies, she is a Tengu, which has a few definitions based on folklore, ranging from demons that signal war is coming, to simply being mischievous spirits who protect the forest. Nyotengu seems pretty chill, so she leans more into the mischievous narrative who probably won't cause the end of the world. Dead or Alive did have one other Tengu rep in the past, named Bankotsubo, who was all about creating chaos and was the final boss of Dead or Alive 2, so Nyotengu's non-hostile nature was a breath of fresh air for the Tengu reps in the series. She was showing the less murderous side of her realm. Regardless, she's still a demon, making her eligible for this list. Her motives aren't entirely clear, but she seems to be around to fight and give advice mainly. She lets the plot be the plot and just pops up every so often. For the most part, you couldn't even tell that she wasn't human if it wasn't for the giant wings, but at least they're not just for show. Expectedly, they're a central part of her moveset. She has a flight mode that gives her plenty of options for attacks. Sometimes, she can just stay in the air and combo for a bit, or she can use it for the ender, like flying into an Izuna drop, or just wailing on the opponent after doing a dive bomb. In fact, she gets pretty aggressive if she needs to. Don't be fooled by how gentle she appears. She can go all Hulk smash on you if she feels like it, and her hand fan is not just for fashion. She has some strong wind powers that it helps with. Even without all the mysticism, she's still a skilled martial artist on her own, so with a combination of wind, wings, wisdom, and probably a fourth word that starts with a W, Nyotengu shows off the true versatility of the Tengu.
My deception rules all of creation!
Number 9, Omen from Killer Instinct. Omen is a simple design, but it's effective. He has the build of a standard human, but his body is just made of dark shadow energy, with the exception of his face, which is basically an Oni mask, and even that kinda blends into his body to make it look like he's all shadow all the time. The shadow body is essentially formless, where he walks around with this humanoid shape, but sometimes will form wings because it's fun to fly. We don't really know the extent of Omen's powers since he's meant to be a mysterious agent of chaos who only exists to destroy. Okay, not only destroy, but that's the end goal. He works for the demigod Gargos, who just wants to take over the world, and Omen makes it easier for Gargos to track down other strong fighters who could potentially stop him. And it's not just Omen working for Gargos, it's Omens. There are many Omens to fly around the world and possess or incapacitate the strongest fighters, so the Omen that we're playing as is essentially just a random minion of Gargos. It could be Omen number 582 for all we know. His main skill is manipulating shadow energy. He makes balls of shadows that he can have float around him and then throw them at the right time, but the most interesting part of his moveset to me is when he tries to get physical. He has no elegance or grace, he just swings his limbs around for a bit. His kick attack is my favorite since it looks like he's trying to do some sort of Chun-Li quick kicks but at a slower pace. It's kinda funny. However, Omen is no laughing matter, since regardless of how strange some of his fighting tactics are, they'll all hurt the same way in the end. Number 8. Firebrand in the Marvel vs. Capcom series. I know we're talking about a crossover series that has many powerful demons from all backgrounds, like the Doctor Strange villains, Team Devil May Cry, and Blackheart, but I like the simplicity of Firebrand. He's a traditional devil-demon design and has classic devilish powers. Nothing too crazy, just claws, wings, and fire, and sometimes I just want to play as a common demon who only likes to destroy, though he has a bit more of a purpose than Mindless Servant, going on multiple quests in the Gargoyles quest series to protect his home. His purpose is to defend the demon realm, so he's smarter than you may think, but what you see is what you get for his fighting style. He makes great work of those claws, either going for some quick slashes or taking you for a ride as he drags the opponent into the ground as he flies low, and the destination is the wall, allowing for more combo opportunities. He also has straight up fire powers in the form of balls at all angles and a flamethrower. With a name like Firebrand, I'm not surprised. As I said, he's not really hiding his powers. That being said, he does have a couple of secrets. He can turn his body white to increase his speed temporarily, and he can call his little buddy to annoy the opponent and do moves alongside him. It's always good to have a friend. Number 7. Inferno from Soul Calibur. The sword Soul Edge is called many things: cursed, evil, wicked, chaos, but if there's one term I'd like to describe it as, it's demonic. That sword has a sentient eye. That's gotta fall under some sort of demon category. No one knows how it truly came to be, other than legends of the sword being soaked in blood and hatred to a point where it needs souls, death, and destruction to survive. The driving force behind Soul Edge is the entity known as Inferno, and the demonic being that helps him is called Nightmare, the latter of which is the result of Soul Edge possessing a warrior to gather souls for Inferno. Once Nightmare gathers enough souls, Inferno can manifest a physical body and show us the true terror of Soul Edge. And then when he does, it's nothing new in the fighting department. Inferno just uses the same movesets as other characters to show off that Soul Edge is the perfected version of all weapons, as in stronger AI. For fighting, the most interesting thing Inferno does is turn other warriors into Nightmare, so we get that hard-hitting moveset with a big demon hand and even bigger sword. At least he's partly responsible for it. That being said, in Soul Calibur 3 and 4, Inferno pulled a "fine, I'll do it myself," and possessed the armor of Nightmare to become him. So Nightmare is actually Inferno, but still technically Nightmare since he fights like Nightmare, but you can consider him Inferno or Nightmare in this scenario. Either way, he's the most demonic that either character has ever appeared. Look at this man. His stomach is a void of evil surrounded by teeth. There's no semblance of humanity with this Nightmare. Inferno really earns his spot on this list for his hellish design and influence in the series. When not in Nightmare's armor, he's made of bones and fire, two aspects that scream demon. I just wish he could be more than a mimic character in future games to cement his legacy in the series. He's a guy on fire. There's plenty of unique things you could do with that. Just look at all the other fighting games that have perfected that sort of moveset. Inferno would be happy to join them.
You lose.
Number 6. Jedha from Darkstalkers. Jedha has appeared on my list for blood manipulators, antagonists in fighting games, Grim Reapers, and edgiest fighting game characters, so I unintentionally have given Jedha a lot of attention over the years, but I can't help it if he fits my topic so well. Look at this dapper fellow. While I would pick another demon from Darkstalkers for this entry, Jedha is really the only character in the game that's classified as a pure demon. Despite this game being about the creatures of the night, the types of monsters on the Darkstalkers roster are usually defined beyond just being a mysterious demon. They're usually classified as something else, like Morgan is a succubus, Dimitri is a vampire, Shenko is a Jiangshi, Rikuo is a strangely attractive fishman, but Jedha is the only one who is classified as a straight-up demon. I discussed in the Reaper video that he is mostly based on a Shinigami and is made out of scythes, but he has enough ambiguity in his design where you still can't quite tell what he's supposed to be. Regardless, Jedha is an excellent demon, being one of the 3 most high-ranking demons of the demon realm in Darkstalkers, and he's the only one of those 3 that's actually playable. The other 2 demons in the series that match his strength are either dead or missing, and Morgan may take over part of the realm eventually, but that's the future. We're living in the present. The dude's arena has a giant demon fetus in the background that no one wants to look at. If that doesn't indicate his power, it at least shows how creepy he is. And what makes Jedha's power so strong? Probably the reality bending and blood manipulation. He uses his own blood to drag his opponents into life-threatening scenarios that ultimately take part of their soul. I've discussed it before, but his coolest attack to me is when he forcefully makes you sign a blood contract in all of your blood, and then steals a bit of soul for later. And to use his own blood, he'll happily dismember himself to allow him to stretch out his limbs, since it's easy to pull yourself back together when you're a demon, though if all else fails, he's made of blades, he'll just use those. Just poking with those things is gotta hurt. He can go full blender if he wants to, you don't need magical blood powers there. Number 5, Quan Chi from Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat has 2 terms for demons, as they've introduced 2 major types of them. The species just known as demon are usually more human-looking characters, or can at least disguise themselves as human-looking. The other major type of demon are Oni, whose name is based on a type of demon in Japanese folklore. To compare the 2, demons in Mortal Kombat generally have a more thought-out fighting strategy, with more nimble movements and potentially magic, while Oni on the other hand are lesser demons who generally have a brute force smashing strategy that is less mindful. Quan Chi though is the only known character who has been both an Oni and a demon. He started off as an Oni, learned the secrets of the dark arts, and then became one of the most powerful sorcerers in the world, who's also a demon. I'm not sure how the hierarchy works that transitions one from an Oni to a demon, but the point is, he's now a strong demon who can use magic. To show his superiority among the demons, he leads all types of demons to do his bidding, whether it's an army of mindless copy-paste demons, the revenants of the characters that we used to know, or a group of other strong, intelligent demons, like Serena, Kia, and Jataka, who NetherRealm Studios really needs to bring back in playable form. No other demon can control him. Quan Chi only works for fallen gods, aka Shinnok, and we all know he's gonna betray Shinnok in the end too. When he takes matters into his own hands, Quan Chi has a mixed fighting style that mostly focuses on magic because he's a sorcerer first and foremost. He relies on mind control, summoning other demons, and just throwing whatever magic projectiles he feels like. Since he's all about necromancy, he favors the skull as his main projectile. He works so hard to craft that beautiful crystal skull only to smash it a second later. Sad. However, the Oni side of Quan Chi's personality shows in a few of his attacks, since he likes to get physical with some of his moves. Particularly with his teleport, where he lands on the opponent and then proceeds to smash them into the ground for a bit. I just like the concept of this magical demon with all sorts of powers at his disposal, and he instead decides to finish off a combo with some good old brute force. And of course, you can't forget about that one fatality he has, where he just rips off the opponent's leg and beats them to death with it. I failed to see any magic used here. That being said, I love it. What was going through his mind when he decided to do this? Quan Chi may be one of the most disdainful characters based on his actions in the story, but he makes up for that by keeping us on our toes with how he decides to fight. Well, maybe he doesn't make up for that since there's a lot of murder and manipulation under his belt, but at least he's fun to play.
Quan Chi wins. Flawless victory.
Number 4, Orochi from King of Fighters. Every time I talk about someone who's possessed by or a follower of the big bad guy in the King of Fighters series, I always bring up that it's the snake demon man Orochi pulling the strings or just being a bad influence. However, he's never received his own entry before since he's usually just a catalyst. Well, now it's finally time for that almighty powerful demon to shine. Orochi was the demon behind the bosses in the first few King of Fighters games, games, either possessing someone to fight on his behalf, or some power-hungry person was trying to release him. Orochi isn't even evil on his own. He was created by Gaia, aka Mother Earth, to protect nature, and since humanity kind of sucks in the King of Fighters universe, Orochi just wants to tear it all down. The form we see Orochi take is not his true self. He's basically a giant snake in his real body, or more snakes plural since there are many heads involved. When we get to fight Orochi, he's possessing the fighter Chris, leading to his more human appearance. Being close to a god power level, it's very hard to defeat Orochi without some sort of magical crap. You either need to be a chosen one or have a mystical artifact, like Kagura's Yata mirror. But since Orochi's a final boss in an arcade mode, technically anyone could beat him if they punch him hard enough. Canonically though, you do need to be a main character, since they're the ones with that power. Since Orochi doesn't need to worry about being a playable character, his moves are overpowered as all hell. He has the powers of doing whatever he wants. He just floats there, waiting to flick you away, pushing opponents back with unspecified energy and creating lightning strikes. His moveset is one big game of get off me, since he effortlessly creates energy waves that send you flying back full screen. Not the most variety, but who needs variety when you have ultimate power? His body even flickers for a few seconds to show that all his might cannot be contained in this realm. It's a really cool effect, I like it. Though if you like how it looks, just admire him from afar because he will dispose you with ease if you get too close.
KO!
Winner is
Number 3. Merkava from Under Night in Birth. The Under Night universe has creatures called voids, which are basically demons, and that's what Merkava is. They consume something called existence, which is a mysterious dark matter. So we're really just taking a roundabout way to say that they're demons that eat dark energy. But still, that doesn't take away from Merkava being one of the most unique characters in the series. He has noodle arms that automatically makes him likable. While voids tend to be mindless creatures that just attack whatever moves, Merkava is above all that. He'll still fight like a wild animal, swinging his arms and biting, but when you're not fighting, he can have a normal conversation with you. He used to be a human, but has a mysterious backstory that hides how he can retain some of his human civility while still being a monster. In fact, he likes when people just converse with him normally over attacking first. Just because he's a monster doesn't mean he has nothing to say. If you look at Korgian's official Undernight intelligence chart, Merkava is actually one of the smartest characters in the game despite being one of the most animalistic fighters. It's kind of wholesome how formal he can be when you respect him, but if you stare in disgust, he'll probably just drop the nice guy persona and potentially use you as prey.
I'm no longer baby, I want power.
Merkava's fighting style is like 80 to 90% arms. He knows where his strengths lie. His arms are multi-talented, being great for swinging, slashing, throwing projectiles, and even flight. And when he's not using his arms, he's probably using his teeth. It's usually a combo, grab and bite. Merkava doesn't need to make things any more difficult. And now to conclude this entry, here's Merkava expert Korgian to monologue on why his boy is the greatest.
Fighting games have been constantly evolving over the years to get to one singular point. From the beginning, we've been aiming for an ideal fighting game character, and we finally achieved it in Merkava, the absolute pinnacle of fighting games. He is silly, he is scary, he is capable of flight, fireballs, he can grab you from anywhere, he can shake your babies, he'll slap you with his silly hands. Merkava's your friend. And if you don't like Merkava, you don't like fighting games. It's that simple.
Number 2, Akuma from Street Fighter. The power known as Satsui no Hado is a major driving force in the Street Fighter series. It's an evil energy that causes fighters to act more violently and potentially kill their opponent. Akuma is the main fighter in the series who has harnessed this power and embraces it as a show of strength. However, he lost his humanity in the process, showing no emotion other than violence and anger. It also turns his hair red, his eyes black, and his teeth sharp, along with the demonic aura. The implication here is Akuma has basically become a demon. Now you might be thinking, why not have this entry belong to Kage, the embodiment of the Satsui no Hado, since he never had the baggage of being a human to begin with? And my answer is, I just like Akuma better. Besides his aesthetic, look at his name! Akuma just means devil, and his Japanese name Goki means great devil or great demon, so he's really pushing this demon narrative. Plus, the name of his iconic super move translates to Raging Demon. Demon is written all over this guy, except his back, which says Ten, or Heaven in kanji, meant to represent that he thinks that he's immortal. And let's talk about that Raging Demon. That's like the best super move in fighting game history. It doesn't have a bunch of animations or flashiness, but it always is able to exemplify the brutality in just a few hit sparks. Who would have thought that all you needed for such a great super move was a black screen and a few dots with sound effects? The rest of Akuma's moves also show off his ruthlessness, having him go one step beyond your standard Shoto-style character. His punches are harder, kicks are spinnier, and fireballs are fierier. He can also do a flip, which allows for specific moves like an air grab or the ever-coveted dive kick. His story reason for using this power is pretty expected. He wants to fight strong opponents, though it's a twisted version of Ryu's story, since Akuma gets mad at weakness and doesn't care about learning about different ways of fighting from other fighters, unlike Ryu, who's all about the learning and respect. Akuma just wants a real challenge in a fight that he'll potentially kill in battle. He also likes to coax Ryu into embracing the Satsui no Hado, since he sees Ryu as a worthy opponent who could go even further beyond with the dark energy. So his story is mostly just him wandering around being an ass, though I like the bits where we see a more thoughtful side of Akuma. Not so much for him being nice, but just not being violent, like when he's thinking, maybe there are strong fighters in this world and it doesn't actually suck, or when Elena takes a selfie with him and he's just confused, or when he's on one of my favorite pieces of official Street Fighter art, where we see him giving fruit to a kid, because apparently Akuma is a street vendor to make money on the side. I want to see more of this Akuma, just him doing day job things. I may be alone on that one, since you generally play Akuma for the action and not the story. When looking for the best demon in fighting games, it was a pretty close call. As we've seen with series like Street Fighter and King of Fighters, demons can be the main antagonists that drive the whole plot, so I picked one that fits that category. Number 1, Devil from Tekken. Devil's origin is somewhat unknown, but the implication is that this guy is the devil. He takes over the body of everyone's favorite protagonist turned antagonist turned chaotic neutral turned whatever he is now, Kazuya Mishima. I've covered the story a few times in other videos, but basically, Father Heihachi threw his son Kazuya off a cliff to teach him toughness, which triggered the devil blood in Kazuya's lineage to take over and let the devil possess his body. This was initially a means to survive the fall, but it soon became something bigger. The story has been told in so many Tekken games that certain aspects of it have been changed or revealed, like that Heihachi also threw Kazuya off the cliff because he feared the devil gene in his son, or that he did it for the opposite reason, where he wanted to activate the devil gene so he could harness it himself. Additionally, the story used to say that Kazuya was rescued by the devil after being tossed off the cliff, by making a deal with him to survive in exchange for using Kazuya's body later on. However, all those details really don't matter in the end, since the devil was here to stay regardless, wreaking havoc all over Tekken's plot. After beating his father in Heihachi's own tournament, Kazuya took over the family business and was quite aware of how the devil powers have enhanced his strength. He spends years having this power grow, thinking about how he can harness it. When Kazuya decides to put on a tournament just like his father, this is when Devil's influence fully comes into fruition, where he emerges in all his purple glory. When you reach Kazuya at the top of the arcade ladder in Tekken 2, after beating him, Devil will take over his body for the true boss battle. He still has Kazuya's hair, but everything else is different. Wings, horns, claws, the works. All seems the same with his moveset at first, using Kazuya's fighting style, but then he pulls out the head lasers. That's essentially what Devil Power is, lasers in flight. But those who want Devil's Power are really just in it for the raw strength, everything else is extra. From this point on though, Devil in his complete form goes dormant. Kazuya spends the next few games pursuing ways to get the Devil to come out in full power, but he has some issues. Meanwhile, Kazuya's estranged son Jin had his own devil powers that he inherited, which would sometimes cause him to go feral as his body shows signs of the devil, namely the wings and horns. Unlike his father though, he wanted to rid his body of the devil, so Kazuya was trying to pursue his own son to absorb his devil power, while Jin was trying to abolish it. It was a race to see if Kazuya could reach Jin before Jin finds a cure. As big as that plotline was though, Kazuya managed to fully bring out the devil come Tekken 7 without any help from Jin. While this version of Kazuya's devil form has some upgraded power and is a lot more elaborate looking now, I still kind of miss something about Tekken 2's devil. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I like the circumstances in which you fight him in the game. It has that PlayStation 1 era uncanny animation, and instead of fighting him in some sort of epic volcano or a stage with any form of brightness, it feels like you're fighting Devil in a void. There's no visible end to the room in sight, or even an indication of where you're fighting, so all you see is a screen in the background that infinitely loops the fight that you're playing. It's like you're fighting in one of the circles of hell. It's the type of eeriness that I feel is hard to emulate with modern games. Don't get me wrong, Devil is still terrifying in modern Tekken, but I guess I just have this nostalgia for the way games used to portray spookiness. Regardless, for being such an enigma that motivates half the cast of Tekken, and showing us some cool laser beams, Devil possesses the top of this list.
You lose.
Now, what did you think? Were all these demons worthy of the underworld, or did I maybe leave a few notable fighting game demons buried somewhere else? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.